Welcome to the National Organization for Rare Disorders webinar, Grow and Diversify Your Board. When, why, and how. My name is Debbie Drell, and I am NORD's Director of Membership, and I will be your facilitator for this meeting. Thank you for joining us to discuss best practices for growing and diversifying your board. We are so excited to help you learn from subject matter experts and our member organizations, their leadership, their experiences with board diversification and growth. This webinar is open to all in the RARE community to provide you with information and resources to help you grow and strengthen your board of directors. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available shortly after the webinar. So just wanted to give a shout out to the membership team, Allie Crafton, Emily Ann Meyer, Ashanti De Silva, and myself. We are the membership team, and we work with organizations who are involved in rare diseases. NORD's mission is your mission. During this webinar, an issue raised or a topic discussed may prompt you to think of a question that doesn't specifically get addressed during the hour. Our membership team is always available to help you answer these questions after the webinar and throughout the year. So don't be a stranger. The email is right there on the screen on the slide below, membership@rarediseases.org. And every time we do a webinar, we like to showcase our mission. We're very proud of it. We are a 40-year-old organization, and we are an independent nonprofit. We are leading the fight to improve the lives of rare disease patients and families. We do this by supporting patients and organizations, accelerating research, and providing education, disseminating information, and driving public policy. If that mission sounds similar to yours, that is because we are doing the same work arm in arm with you to the 25 to 30 million Americans living with rare diseases. We salute you in the work that you do, and our mission is your mission. So just a quick announcement as people sort of trickle into this webinar. We know that finding the right board member and planning to grow your board are just a few of the challenges that rare disease organizations face. And I want to mention our members only Facebook group. We have 330 organizations that are members of NORD. We're an umbrella, a federation of these organizations, if you will, and we support their work. If you're interested in being a member, this is one of the benefits, to have access immediately, any time of day or night, to 430 other leaders. And every day, the leaders share a lot of information, questions, tips, strategies, best practices. It's moderated, so it's not a heavy traffic. It's on Facebook because most of our members live there. And that's how their groups originate. It's moderated, it's private, it's an incredible opportunity to crowdsource. This is one of our many exclusive benefits to NORD members. Our webinars tend to be members only, but because we're looking at diversity and an important issue on board, we have expanded this to make it available to everybody. So we do want to continue to help support all rare disease communities, members or no. For those of you who'd like to grow, please consider joining NORD, learning more about it on our website, or emailing membership@rarediseases.org. So I'm done talking. I am so excited to invite our panelists. One at a time, they will share their experience, their perspectives on board growth and board strategies, the when, why, and how. Our presenters are the names that you see on the screen before you on that slide. Crystal Cherry is the principal and CEO of the Board Pro. She's first to speak. She'll introduce herself and talk a little bit about what she does. Jennifer Canvasser is the founder and executive director of the NEC Society, a member organization of NORD. And Chandalyn Williams is founder of the Cynthia Solomon Holmes Foundation, not a member yet, but she's also a board member of the National Leiomyosarcoma Foundation, which just joined NORD and just joined our Rare Cancer Coalition. So because of some technical difficulties, there is a possibility that Ashanti De Silva, my colleague, will be coming in at the end to do Q&A. So we'll see how it goes, but this is pandemic year 2. Anything can happen while we're still doing virtual meetings. So thank you for joining. And if you see Ashanti jump in, that's because we're a team, and that's because technology is what it is. So I am happy to turn the virtual microphone over to Crystal Cherry, our guest expert speaker, for talking about growing and diversifying your board. Crystal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Debbie. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to present to your members. So I wanted to just say hello again. My name is Crystal Cherry. I'm the principal and CEO of the Board Pro, a boutique consulting firm to help nonprofits build effective boards. I am located in Atlanta, Georgia. I like to share a little bit about me when I present. So I am a super mom of an 11-year-old boy. I am a 23-year trained fundraiser in the nonprofit space. As I mentioned, I'm a board consultant working with nonprofits all over the country to help them build effective boards in terms of fundraising and conflict resolution, recruitment, onboarding, everything that you know about board work. I am a volunteer, a member of Toastmasters, a native New Yorker, a Snickers junkie. So for those of you who love Snickers, high five to you. And I'm also a Leo, born in August. So all my August birthdays, high five to you as well. So I want to talk a little bit about the fiduciary responsibilities of board members. People don't realize that board service is a serious commitment, and we have obligations once we sign on as a board member. So we have duty of care, which means we're going to be making decisions that will help the organization to advance forward. Duty of loyalty, which means putting the organization's mission first, and duty of obedience, adherence to mission bylaws and state laws. And so I'm often asked, what is the right size to have for your board? Every state has laws on what is the minimum amount of board members you should have. So you definitely want to know yours. For the state of Georgia, where I live, the minimum amount is 3. But there are other things that you need to consider when you're figuring out what size should my board be. The average size of a nonprofit board in the United States is 15, which is down from where it used to be. It used to be 19. So boards are actually shrinking, probably because of the time commitment that's required and because of the number of nonprofits. We have 1.4 million nonprofits in the United States, and that's a lot of boards. And so we're having difficulty. In fact, some 75% of boards right now are looking for board members. That just goes to show you that boards are shrinking. Their board members are in demand, and finding the right ones are always the challenge. The average age of board members is 55. The optimal number of board members that we suggest is 7. But again, a lot of other factors will go on to that, depending on the state that you live in, depending on the size of your organization, the budget, the number of people you're serving. All those things should be taken into consideration. But every board member after 7, after that, decreases decision making by 10%. So it's really hard when you have a large board to get a quorum, to get everyone engaged, to get everyone in attendance to meetings and making decisions. And you can use this info as a starting metric before considering the organization's life cycle, mission, and fundraising needs. Oh, yes. I'm often asked, what is the ideal board member? What should we be looking for in board members? And what you should be looking for is those who understand the duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience that I shared earlier. You want one person who embodies strong character traits such as honesty, integrity, and unyielding ethics. Someone who's really organized and has the dates of all board meetings and important events on their calendar, so they know and come prepared. They encourage the board to conduct regular self-evaluations to identify individual and collective strengths. That's really the job of the board chair or the governance chair. You want someone who's willing to make regular personal donations. Most boards require that you make a financial gift to the organization. We want those who abide by that and who are willing to make a stretch gift when needed. So last year in COVID, when we had so much going on, even board members who had already made their yearly donation often made stretch gifts to help fill some of the gaps, some of the shortfalls organizations were experiencing because of COVID. You want a board member who understands their primary role as that of strategic planner and overseer, and one who looks for new opportunities to increase personal knowledge about board service. And so this is the ideal board member. Of course, no one is perfect, but when you're looking to bring folks onto your board, these are the kinds of traits and skills and commitments that you're hoping that your board members will make. So, growing a board is not something you should do willy nilly. You need to be strategic, exercise discipline, engage in deep networking. That means you have to cast a wide net. Be able to clearly articulate your mission. There's nothing worse than a board who cannot articulate what the mission of the organization is. Being able to identify qualified, diverse professionals, which is always, as I mentioned, a challenge, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. And remember that it's not about finding board members fast. Often we hear people say, listen, I have a board seat. I want to know if you're interested. We need you to roll on next month. That is not the way to go. This requires time to get it right and get the right people on your board. So I often start with creating a board matrix for my clients. And it's a board profile that will help you to determine the skills and the qualities that you need that will benefit your board. And you can ask these important questions. Do you need to find more people with lived experiences closer to constituents that you serve? Is your board diverse enough to enable you to benefit from different points of view? Do you need extra finance or legal capacity on your board? And do you have ambassadors, connectors, and fundraisers? And so, once you answer some of those questions, then that'll help you fill in this board matrix and know exactly what needs need to be addressed and what gaps need to be filled. So you'll know who to be looking for when you start your search. And that's exactly what I do when I work with my clients. And so this is a sample of what a board matrix looks like. As you can see at the top, it has attributes by gender, age, race, ethnicity, geography, and whether or not they're a part of the underserved community that you're serving. And then next, you have your skill sets in terms of finance, legal, governance, fundraising. And, everybody's matrix will be different depending on your needs. So this will be tailored to what your board needs are. And then, of course, your core competencies at the end. They're a visionary, strategic thinker, accountability. So these are all the things that we're normally looking for, attributes and skills that we're normally looking for in board members. But again, your matrix is going to be tailored for your audience. And so you'll decide exactly what needs to go on there. But usually, once you fill this in, you'll have a good idea of what needs and gaps are open and need to be filled. And so people always ask me, where do we go to find new board members? I have no idea. Well, first I say start inward. You want to go, some of your traditional sources are going to be your board members themselves. And so often we'll find that, board members have people in their sphere of influence that they've never even considered to be board members. And so we always ask people, who do you go to church with? Who do you work out with at the gym? What about people in your local Rotary? What about your book club? What about your fraternity and sorority? And so those are some of the traditional sources, but there's some non-traditional sources as well. So churches, we don't often think about people who we go to church with. As I mentioned, your local Rotaries, going to the Chamber of Commerce, looking at the vendors that support your organization. Some civic groups in where your organization might be located, or the community where your constituents are. Some constituents, civic groups, professional women's groups. LinkedIn, which is a great source, believe it or not. It's free, and you could just start Googling companies or Googling a region to find out who might be in that region that might be a good prospect for you. Of course, Facebook groups. So social media, don't underestimate the value of social media when you're looking for new board members. And as I mentioned earlier, book clubs. So lots of different places you can go that you may not have thought about. And we just have to be creative and cast a wide net. So how do you use your network? We're all on social media. We all have Facebook, and some of us have Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter. And so I say use all of your networks on social media to find out who might be interested in serving for your board. Some of us are members of industry associations. So, for example, I am a board member of the Association of Fundraising Professionals. For those of us who serve in the fundraising field, this is the place you want to be, right? And so I would certainly go to my members to see if there were any qualified people to serve on a board that I'm looking for. My local gym, again, sports teams. My kid plays basketball and football. And so I have moms and dads who are professionals and lawyers and doctors on this team. In fact, I just found out my primary care physician is on my son's, the parent of my son's football team. And so I'm going to certainly talk to her. Sororities and fraternities, book clubs, meetups, and even Clubhouse. I was thinking the other day, because I drop into Clubhouse every once in a while to listen to different groups that I'm interested in. Why not start a group on Clubhouse for folks that might be interested in your field, in the rare diseases field, and have an opportunity to talk about what you do, and then see if those folks are interested in joining your board. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how we can be creative here, and you have to go to where people are. So um, please be open as you think about that. So as you start thinking about bringing them in, once you've recruited those board members with all those ideal traits and characteristics that I mentioned earlier, what do we do with them once we get them? How do we get them onboarded? And so we want to onboard with inclusiveness and make everyone feel welcomed. And so I suggest maybe having a get to know you social and orientation. That should happen before the first board meeting, where everyone gets a chance to say hello to the new board members, welcome them, learn a little bit about them personally, whatever they're willing to share. Maybe have some refreshments. If it's an after hours, maybe even some wine, so that people can relax and have a good time. But really, really make people feel welcomed onto the board. It can be scary when you come onto a new board as a new person and not know anyone. So a social before the orientation, before the first board meeting would be great. Including announcements of who's going to be on your board on social media, and to your major donors. Just an announcement stating that we have 3 new board members coming on this month, and tell a little bit about the board members, where they work, and what skill sets they bring to the organization. You want to introduce your new board members to your key staff folks, particularly your executive leadership team, but even your other staff members. You might want to send an email out with photos of your new board members and telling who they are and what they do. And then you want to celebrate these new board members for the accomplishments they have. So if they've just recently earned an MBA, or if they've celebrated a 20-year anniversary at their jobs, or whatever it is, but you want to share their accomplishments and then celebrate with them and publicly. And then it might be nice to have a little welcome gift, whether it be, some swag, whether it be a pen or a pin or a button or a hat or a t-shirt, just something to make them feel like you're on the team now, and we're so glad that you are here. Okay, so I just thought it's really important to share that board members have rights. They have unlimited access to records, and they should be in on internal communications. They can call meetings in times of crisis. They have the right to dissent if there's something they disagree with at meetings. They can call out other directors for poor behavior. They should have protection against liability, and they should know the business judgment rule, which protects them as long as they're acting according to the bylaws of the organization. They should be protected. So board members do have rights, and it's important as you bring them on that they are clear about that. And I think board members now have oh my goodness, it looks like my slides here are moving by themselves. I don't know what happened. So board members should be clear about the balances of power. And so we know that boards have traditionally been predominantly white, predominantly male. And so now, as we think about diversifying our boards, we want to welcome other people onto our boards who may not be in those groups, and make them feel comfortable speaking up. You want to give them positions where they are chairing committees and having some say on some of the policies and what's going on. And so we want to create opportunities for people who have historically been excluded and calling the shots to have voices and to be respected and heard. Creating an inclusive board culture. We want to make sure that the orientation allows them to serve on committees. You want to use language that's inclusive. You want to avoid discussions that talk about boat size and home size that might make people feel uncomfortable. Having a buddy system where you're pairing up new board members with current board members so they can learn about the culture of the board. Knowing about a day of service where everyone can volunteer together, and celebrating cultural holidays for people who have come from different cultures. Remembering that there are personal benefits to serving on a board, connecting with others, supporting and strengthening the community which you live and work, developing new skills and honing your leadership skills, expanding your social and professional networks. But remember, most importantly, that your voice matters. And so that's really important. And so I just wanted to share about my new e-workbook on how to train the woke board about race equity. It's called Silence is Not Golden, and you can find it on my website at theboardpro.com. So that ends my presentation. Thank you so much, Debbie and Nord and Ashanti, for inviting me. And I can't wait to hear what the other speakers have to share.
Crystal, this was so excellent. My hand hurts from taking notes. This was so good. I thank you. I thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts in the Q&A. And I really, Clubhouse, amazing. I love that concept. And I'm going to find you now. So without further ado, I wish I could give you the whole hour. I'm going to pass the mic virtually to Jennifer Canvasser from the NEC Society, who will discuss how her rare disease organization has grown their board and the initiatives they've implemented to diversify their board. Thank you so much for being with us, Jennifer. You're on.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. So, as was mentioned, I'm the founder and director of the Necrotizing Enterocolitis Society. NEC or NEC is a disease that affects premature and vulnerable infants during their first weeks and months of life. That photo is a picture of my son, Micah, who tragically died from necrotizing enterocolitis complications just before his first birthday. And so after I lost Micah, I returned to work. I was working at a nonprofit environmental organization. I loved doing the work that I did, but I, as you can imagine, had a tremendous amount of grief that I needed to figure out what to do with and how to live without Micah in my arms. And so I kind of looked around. I have a background in community organizing and nonprofit leadership, and I realized that there wasn't anyone that was really working on necrotizing enterocolitis and bringing everyone to the table to advance this devastating rare neonatal disease. And so I decided to start the NEC Society. And before we even became a 501c3 organization, I put together a board. Like, I just recognized that in order for a group to exist, we have to have some type of leadership. It's not something that I could just do by myself. So, like probably many of you, I started with just an internal group of people who were close to me. We lacked some of the things that we lacked: infrastructure. We didn't have any funding. We didn't have much capacity. We didn't have any of our policies or procedures in place. We didn't have a roadmap in terms of where we were going to go. We didn't have people that were going to be doing this work. But our very small team had the vision. Our vision was to build a world without necrotizing enterocolitis and to advance research and education and awareness and advocacy for this disease. We had our values. And so we had our vision, our mission, and our values were very clear. And so then we were able to be selective. And so you could see my question there. So if we lacked all of these things, how could we possibly say no to people who wanted to be involved? But that's exactly what we did. We were very, and have always been, very selective in terms of who we bring on to help lead our organization from the very beginning, even when we lacked all of the things that you see listed here. So now the NEC Society is still a very, very small nonprofit, but we have made a tremendous amount of progress over the last few years. And so how did we do it? I'm going to basically be sharing some of the things that have worked for us and do my best to provide any insight that I can to help you along in your journey. So for years, we did not have a reliable, functional board. It was people who had been close to me at some point. I never had family members on our board, but it was, friends and other people who I thought could bring very useful skills to our board. And they did, but they weren't as engaged and reliable as we needed them to be. And so it did not work well, as I'm sure many of you can relate. So we needed to fix that. And so with an extreme amount of work, a little bit of luck, and some very intentional strategic planning and collaborations, we've been able to grow and really build our infrastructure that has allowed us to bring on board members. And so I'm going to be sharing some of the tools and how we how we did this and how we got to where we are today. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for you to be very clear about what your values are. So not just your organization's mission, but what are your values? You're not just an organization without values. You have values. So make them clear, articulate them, share them, promote them on social media, make sure that your values are known. Get really specific in terms of what you need and expect from your board. What are their duties? What are their responsibilities? One thing that we've done recently is become much more specific about our give or get expectations of our board. So our board isn't just there to provide us with insight and guidance on certain decisions, although that is important, but they are also there to help us figure out how do we fundraise for our organization and our mission and our vision? Like, how do we make this work financially sustainable, which we're still trying to figure out to do. So one of those expectations is they give or get a certain amount of funds every year. We have a conflict of interest statement that's very clear. We also have built-in exit strategies. And so if or when we have a board member that is no longer a good fit for whatever reason, we have a way out to make sure that we can move forward without them continuing to drag us down. We've also had to figure out how to leverage the connections we have by really building a bit of an engagement web and looking at who we each are connected with and then continuing to draw out from those connections that we all have. I'm going to show you our matrix. I know that was previously mentioned, but we've actually just recently implemented a matrix where we've been able to kind of capture who and the demographics and characteristics of the leadership of our council, our board, and our staff with an organization. And then another thing that's been incredibly helpful for us is having written policies and procedures. And I have to say that, you know, after Micah died, I just wanted to get to work. Like, I wanted to do the research for NEC. I wanted to do the education and like actually do the work that I felt was most impactful to move the needle on this devastating disease. I didn't want to have to bog myself down with the policies and the procedures and like the desk work that wasn't, I felt, directly related to our mission and vision. And it caught up to us. And we realized that if we wanted to continue to grow and thrive as an organization, we needed to take a pause, not completely on the work that we're doing, but slow down a little bit so that we can first develop those policies and procedures that we really should have developed as we were just getting started years ago. So that's been really, really important for us to have. And I can't emphasize that enough. So here is our core team matrix. And when I say the core team, I'm talking about our entire board of directors. We have 3 part-time staff members and our scientific advisory council. And so we've come up with some of the skills, the characteristics that we feel are important for us to capture. And, you know, we have the checkbox where people can kind of put a checkbox next to where they feel their skills or characteristics come in. And then we're able to actually, this is not public, I should say, this is not an external document that we share, although we may capture the information together and share that at some point. But this is something for just internal to hold ourselves accountable for the diversity work that we are so committed to doing. If you know, we feel like we have to measure what we are trying to achieve. And so this is our way of attempting to capture and measure our goal of diversifying and growing our board in a way that's strategic and really effective for us. We also have a clear inclusivity policy and statement that we put out and are very clear on our social media accounts, on our website, who we are, what our values are, and that we are an inclusive organization. There have been individuals, very few individuals though, that have pushed back on this and asked us why we are being political. And we respond that we're not being political. These are our values. Necrotizing colitis disproportionately affects communities of color, and it is our responsibility and obligation and privilege to make sure that we are representing people who are being affected by this disease. And if people don't agree with our values, then they can go find another organization that they have a better fit with, but this is who we are. And so we're very, very clear, and we only partner with other individuals or other groups and organizations that share our values. And that's just who we are. And we're very proud of our values. And I think it's allowed us to bring in individuals from different backgrounds on our board and our staff and our council because they recognize who we are. So that's, I think, a really important point. So I just want to hit on a few things that I think could be helpful. So one of the ways we've been able to expand our work is through storytelling. And I have to say, as a mother who lost her son to this devastating disease, storytelling can be really difficult. It can be like just devastating and heartbreaking and not just difficult to get your story into succinct, concise, few minute pitch, but it's a really important skill to be able to tell your story in a compelling way that brings people on and engages them and helps them understand the value of the work that you're doing. So storytelling is really critical. I think it's also really important from the very beginning to clearly articulate your organization's values as well as your culture. And what I mean by culture is that the Next Society has a very inclusive and flat organization, meaning, I'm the executive director, but I'm not the boss of anyone. You know what I mean? Like we are a team. We have a collaborative culture. And so we want to make sure that whoever we're bringing in will help us nurture that collaborative teamwork environment. We also are going to encourage you to demonstrate your values and your culture and your everyday work. So on social media, on your website, and the language that you use, and the pictures that you produce. I think that's one really important suggestion, is that when you're using photos or graphics or images or just whatever you're using to do your work, that you make sure that it reflects your community. And so having a diversity, like for example, we are an organization that advocates for vulnerable and premature babies. And so we try to make sure that all the babies that you've been seeing today on my screen are my children. But when we're on social media, we try to make sure that we represent a diversity of families from different backgrounds to demonstrate that we are an inclusive organization and that people can see themselves and they can have a sense of belonging, that they belong within the Next Society and they have a place here. I think we can all harness the power within our community and networks. I know it was mentioned, you can look at different places within your community, the Rotary clubs, the book clubs. I think that's a really important point when you're looking for board members. Look at who you already have connections with beyond your family and friends. I think it's really, really important to, we actually have a policy to keep family members off our board. I think it's really important just to keep it professional. And I encourage us to all look at how we can expand our board. And that's one way to do it, is look at your community and what type of connections you may have and who may be interested in joining and serving in that way. The other thing I really want to emphasize is expanding thoughtfully and carefully. I know it was mentioned that an ideal board size is 7. I think, when you get up to 15, for example, it gets tricky not only to make decisions, but just to really stay true, I think, to your values and to do efficient work. And so you want to make sure that you're expanding very thoughtfully and carefully with who you bring onto the team. Don't rush it. Once you bring them on, it can be difficult to get a board member off. Again, you have those exit strategies in place, but it's still really important to take it slow, really do your, as thorough as you can, your homework in terms of making sure that it's a good fit before you bring someone on. And then I also think it's really critical that that you invest in your board members by making sure that they feel appreciated, that they have some type of benefit from being on your board. Obviously, it's not going to be a financial benefit, clearly, but some type of that it's a rewarding experience for them is what I'm getting at, to make sure that they are feeling like they are also building connections, meaningful relationships, and something that they find valuable to be a part of. It's not that you just want to take from them. You want to make sure it's reciprocal and that they feel very valued and enjoy being a part of your mission and your vision and your work. So I think that's all I have for you today, but I look forward to our questions and discussions, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was really excellent. Absolutely loved what I heard, and the mission is fueled by the heart, but there needs to be these, the matrix is so good to look at, and the qualities of a board member, it's good to really be deliberate and to think through all the decisions that go into identifying a board member. So I really enjoyed, and I think that our audience, we are getting lots of questions. So it'll be really great to go into Q&A. So with that, our final speaker is Shondalyn Williams, who also comes from the rare disease space, specifically rare cancer, and she will share her experiences and strategies for board growth. Thank you so much, Shondalyn, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Just a little bit about me. I don't know how I can exactly follow these amazing women on this platform, but I'll do my best. Again, my name is Shondalyn Williams, and I am the Executive Director of the Cynthia Solomon Holmes Foundation, and also a newly board member of the National Leiomyosarcoma Foundation. So just a little bit about me. I have organized, initially starting this organized walk for LMS awareness in honor of my mother who succumbed to leiomyosarcoma. So I ended up co-founding the organization with my sister in 2011. And then I said, okay, this is my life's purpose. I have to spread awareness about this disease and how people were affected by it. So, but then I had no idea how to effectively spread awareness about the disease. As a result, I crashed and burned several times trying to get it together. So I thought, through that experience, how can I inspire people and how can I encourage people and how can I uplift people? How can I help, essentially? And I thought, well, you know what? I'm still learning how to do that. So I have a picture of my mother. This is one of the last pictures at an event just before she became ill. And the whole purpose and reason behind the Cynthia Solomon Holmes Foundation, it is really to carry on her legacy, but our mission is also to increase awareness of leiomyosarcoma cancer and to support some much-needed research efforts, assist patients and families through advocacy and funding for needs and treatments. So I've started this hashtag of Cure LMS. Some board growth strategies that I found to be helpful and what I deem as a grassroots organization, and if, some of you may be familiar with that. If you think of MAD, which is Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the women's suffrage movement dating all the way back to the early 1900s, and even still the Me Too movement in our current climate. These all started with essentially an experience that someone had, and it grew into nationwide organizations. So what I have found to be helpful for us is attending business and other networking events. Even in the midst of a global pandemic, we have been thrust into this virtual world. So we are all living in a virtual life via Microsoft Teams or Zoom or Global Meet, Google Meet. So there are still opportunities for engagement through those platforms. Another thing I found was to solicit like-minded people. I know the other lady spoke on this as well, but people who are purpose-driven and who share the same interests in the organization's missions and values. And you do want to be very selective in your process. Soliciting people of influence who can serve the community through your organization is imperative for your organization. Effectively offering training, assigning tasks, and make sure that you have deliverables is also important because you can make sure that people understand what your end goal is. Understand, for instance, leiomyosarcoma is a rare disease. So I want to make sure that people understand what it is that we're trying to convey and why we're trying to convey that information. So, and assigning tasks and deliverables, it just gives people accountability. Make sure they remain engaged, they stay connected to the organization, and then providing transparency. We were a new organization. We were very small. We were still growing, still going through lumps and bumps of trying to get, our business in order while keeping our eye on the mission and vision of our organization. So we had to be very transparent in how we communicated with each other and with people that we were trying to connect with, other organizations, businesses that we were trying to connect with. Also, soliciting individuals that have a special set of skills, expertise, or talent that could benefit the organization. So if you have someone who is very good at public relations, that is someone who may be very strong for your organization. Someone who may be good with marketing, who can get your name out into the community, could be a benefit to the organization as well. So people of influence, you can only go so far with your wits. So you definitely need other people to help you meet the goals and the vision of your organization. What I have found is there are different types of boards within your board of directors. So you have like your working board, people who are very committed to the organization, they're engaged, they're attending meetings, they are on time, they keep things organized. Then you have a board for credibility. Maybe you just have someone who has a name or an influence in the community. And maybe they're not exactly on your board, but perhaps they host an event in honor of your organization because they're connected to a wider audience. I believe it was Crystal who noted, casting a wide net. This is part of that credibility board. You have someone who focuses on fundraising, someone who can go out there and speak to the public on your behalf or write letters or solicit other organizations or businesses to provide funds that are definitely needed for a small and growing organization. Perhaps there can be information that's listed on your organization's website or social media. So there are endless opportunities that are available for your organization to grow. But again, it's about engagement, making sure that your people are engaged. Having a board with relevant experience, as I've said before, is very beneficial because someone who started an organization like this and very similar to myself, we don't know it all. We think we do. I thought I did. I thought I knew it all, could do it all. But someone having relevant experience, especially in areas where I lack, is a huge benefit to your board. And that should definitely be utilized. One of the things right now, we're living in a world of diversity, multiculturalism. Those are components that many organizations are embracing. And they're embracing those because that is definitely what's needed in our current climate. People feel appreciated when you're trying to embrace their culture, understand their backgrounds, and then you're able to make the personal connection. So in my corporate life, I work in organ procurement, right, and giving hope to individuals, people who are waiting on the transplant list for organs. We have an amazing board of directors, and my boss and I were having a conversation. He's the president and CEO, and we were talking about the lack of diversity on our board, and he was stumped saying, Chandler, I really don't know how to get some diversity on our board. And plainly put, I told him, I said, you need some people, you need some millennials, you need different generations. But if you're trying to reach people that look like me, you need someone on the board who looks like me. You have to make that personal connection with different cultures. So we talk about cultural competence and understanding. And there's a bit of a disconnect there, just a little bit. But that is where diversity comes into play and can fill in some of those gaps, who can make the connections that are needed, who can meet people where they are and bring them in. I'm in Houston, Texas, so it's a melting pot for multiculturalism. Like every nationality is here. However, we're so untapped into every ethnicity. And why is that? We're limiting ourselves in that area. So we've got to make sure that we have a plan for diversity and embrace that, not be afraid of it, not being afraid of, the millennials, not being afraid of Generation X and Generation Y, because they have benefits to offer. We're living in a technical world, social media world, and that is kind of the way that we're moving in things. There are a lot of advertisement, businesses that are being promoted through social media. We need the audience and the generation who know how to navigate within that platform. We need to embrace them and have them to be a part of our board. So we can accept that they're different and accept their ideas and their creativity and what they have to offer. I think at this point, collaboration is a huge, huge thing. One of the things that I'm working on right now, I have a collaboration with the National Leiomyosarcoma together, and that is a huge, huge thing right now for many reasons. We can bridge the gap. We can connect with organizations who have the same purpose and focus and values as our own. And how do you start to do that? You can become a supporter of their organization and some of their endeavors, some of their projects, and perhaps even just outright asking for collaboration. I see that you have this project or this movement going on. How can my organization, how can we be a part of that? How can we work together to fulfill both of our goals and meet them through, some type of collaborative project? One of the things that the Cynthia Solomon Holmes Foundation is focused on is patient advocacy. The National Leiomyosarcoma Foundation is focused on research. They have a lot of research efforts. So the two of us combining, it just allows us to fulfill our purpose more intently and most likely much more sooner. We have awesome ideas that we can share with each other's audience, which will only further to propel our goal. So just to recap, some of the art of collaboration benefits. It increases efficiency. We are expanding our outreach. We're reaching each other's audience. It increases synergy. So it allows us to kind of combine together, collaborate, enhance our teamwork. In the sense of doing that, we're combining our talents, our strengths, things that we know that work good, that work out well for our organization. They can help the other organization meet their needs. So combining those strengths. And then it speeds up solutions where we may have a timeline of goal setting. Perhaps that can be sped up through the process of collaboration. One of the things, and I'll tell you this from personal experience, things to avoid is no communication, making sure that you keep that transparency in communicating with not only your board, but out into the community and the general public. Another thing, again, because I tend to think that I am superwoman, I can do it all, and I most definitely try, but I'm human, so exhaustion tends to set in, and then we wear ourselves out. And that is one thing that, although you want to keep your board engaged, you don't want to overwork them. You don't want to put so much on them that they're overworked and they become exhausted. So you want to be sure that you spread responsibilities when you're assigning those tasks and you're assigning those deliverables. You want to make sure that you spread those out equally to avoid that. And then lastly, you want to make sure that your eye is still on the focus and mission of the organization. We are a rare disease organization. We already have a difficult time with that when we're talking about leiomyosarcoma. People most likely have never heard of that disease. So we already have that obstacle that we have to overcome. So it's important for us to really keep sight of that and make sure that people are educated. People know about what it is that we do and why, and how can people be affected. So we have a different challenge altogether, but we want to make sure that, your board remains focused on what the goal is. And through that you have to have communication. That is optimal. Now, will it be easy? Absolutely not. It will not. It will be a challenge. But the thing is persistence and perseverance. And as long as you keep your eye on the focus of the values of the organization, it can be achieved. Will it be worth it in the end? Absolutely. I think about that every day. I don't have my mother here. It's been 10 years since she's been gone. I miss her every single day. But what reinvigorates me, what keeps me going, is my focus. I think about what I went through. I think about what my family went through during the process of her illness. And that is what keeps me going. That is what keeps me motivated. I always come back to that. So when I say, will it be worth it if I can touch one life through our organization, it's definitely worth it. So I encourage you not to give up. Stay engaged. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your focus on the mission, the values of your organization, and you can achieve it. Give yourself some time. It won't happen overnight, but keep yourself engaged. I guarantee it will happen. So don't give up. I believe that's my time. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity. To Nord and all the organizers, I appreciate you. I hope that I've helped someone today. Thank you.
Shondalyn, thank you so much. You have helped many people today. We had hundreds of people register to attend this session, and everything you shared was really useful. And collaboration is so important. Nord works with 330 organizations, and we live for that collaborative spirit. And you really did enumerate the benefits of collaboration. So just a note before we go into Q&A, there might have been some slides that were a little buggy. When we create the slide deck for download, that will be available to you appropriately. So we'll clean up some of those slides. So we are appreciative of the technology that allows us to go virtual. I was off camera for a second. Sorry about that. Now you can see my home. Welcome to DC. So at any rate, the slides will be available for download. That's one of our most frequently asked questions. But now we're just going to go straight into Q&A. A question came in for Crystal, and that question is, you mentioned Clubhouse and sports teams. How do you find board members who don't know about your disease? How do you help them to become passionate when rare diseases affect such a small population? So that's for you, Crystal, if you can unmute and come in.
Yes, Debbie, thank you so much. I think in this particular case, are you hearing me clearly? I'm getting some static.
We can hear you, yeah, and you just came on video, so yes,
Good.
Go for it.
No, I think in your particular case, I think education is going to be key for those who are not aware of your disease and your mission. It's educating people about it. And so that means having, really good marketing in terms of getting out there and meeting people where they are. So I remember when I worked for Susan G. Komen, we had campaigns, particularly during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, where we were in the supermarkets. Literally, as people were checking out, we had tables by the front door with all kinds of materials about breast cancer and representatives there to answer questions and to hand out brochures and to encourage people to go to the website. And so I think in this particular case, that kind of outreach is going to be really important in terms of just educating the community about your organization. But again, I don't know if there are any industry associations affiliated with the work that you do, but certainly infiltrating those groups and maybe infiltrate was not the right word, but going to those groups and letting them know about your organization to see if there might be some folks that might be interested in that work. And then how about maybe going to doctors' offices, doctors who actually treat the disease, and maybe they have family members, like, we've had some family members here who had lost folks, maybe having some family members who maybe years ago, you want to make sure you've given them time to grieve, but maybe years ago may have lost someone and is passionate about this work, who might be interested in serving on boards. And so I think you really have to kind of dig in and go to where people are that might be interested in your work and in the organization that you're serving.
So they might not have a direct connection, but they get it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right. Great. I'd like to throw this question also to Jennifer. Jennifer, have you invited any board members who don't have a connection? And how do you decide what proportion of people should have a direct connection versus not so much?
Yes, absolutely. We have board members who have not been personally affected by the disease. And I think they just have to be invested and believe in our vision and have shown that they are committed to being a part of this organization and helping to accelerate the work that we're doing. So I think it is really important. We consider ourselves to be a patient-led organization. So we always do intend to have at least, a few patients or, family members who've been affected personally by necrotizing tracheitis. But I think, I don't think most organizations will be able to get there with just patient family advocates. We do need to expand out and find other stakeholders who believe in our vision and our mission and are willing to join us and do this work. So I don't know if that answers the question, but.
Yeah, it does. It's really good to hear from a rare disease board, what that looks like as an example. So thank you for your response. A question to Shondalyn. Shondalyn, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. Just want to get you back on the camera. What are your suggestions for inviting and including board members of color without tokenizing?
I think trying to make the personal connection. Initially, what has worked for me is really just kind of engaging those people in a conversation. And like Jennifer said before, storytelling is very important. You can pull on the heartstrings of people. People can make a personal connection just based on your culture and how you dealt with things. And I think just sharing your story, your heartfelt, people see your heart. People can see when you're genuine and when you're passionate about something, and they can want to get involved simply based off of that. So you don't necessarily have to target those individuals in a way of saying, I need more people, that necessarily look like me, but you can engage them in conversation and then articulate it in a way that we have to spread out our diversity, increase our diversity so that we can reach more people. I think it's less about maybe tokenism, but really kind of making the connection and emphasizing on why the connection is so important.
Thanks for that. I want to throw that to either Jennifer or Crystal to respond.
I would love to respond. I couldn't agree more. And I want to say two things. One is that you don't have to be personally affected by a disease to care about a disease. I know she just mentioned it, but I really think it's about how you pitch the work that you're doing, how you tell your story, how you captivate the hearts of others. If you can do that, then you're going to be able to bring people in who have no personal connection to the disease, but they see its impact and their potential to help make a difference, and they're going to be inspired to get involved. And then the other thing about diversifying your group is that you have to start by making sure that you're giving people a place to see themselves within your organization. So if you already, if your board, for example, is all white, or and your team is all white, and you don't have any community like people of color on your team, then you can at least start by diversifying the graphics on your website and your social media and the pictures and the images that you're using. But you have to be very intentional about the language that you use, about the photos that you're using, and really making sure that people see that you are an organization that values individuals from different and diverse backgrounds, and that you're working on it. Before you can just expect someone from a different background to come and join your team, you need to show that you're committed to the work and are going to be doing this work for the long term and continuing to evolve and grow as an organization committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So we have just a couple minutes left. I have another question. This one is for anybody on the panel to chime in first. Our organization has sometimes experienced resistance to diversifying our board. How do you have these challenging conversations?
I'd like to chime in. And I also want to piggyback off of what my colleagues have said to the last question. There was really wonderful feedback. And also, I think so that going back to tokenism, so that people don't feel like you've just brought me on to be the token. I think when you're going to start diversifying, maybe you bring on a few people at one time, 2 or 3 people at one time, instead of just bringing on one person, so that one person doesn't feel like, oh, I'm the token Black, or I'm the token woman, or I'm the token Latino, but bringing on a group of people at one time. And in terms of, you said resistance to diversifying the board, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I think you should start off by looking at the community that you serve to see if that's reflected, the demographics of your community is reflected on your board. And then if not, then the world. I mean, just looking at the world and saying, we need to be diverse. We need to have diverse thoughts. People who come from different traditions and different cultures, they bring a different skill set. They bring different beliefs and values that we need so that we can be a well-rounded board, so that we can effectively serve our community. So bringing on diversity of thought and emotional capacity and academic and intellectual capacity is going to be an asset. There's no way that's not a win-win situation for board members. So just remind them that you're there to serve the best interests of the organization, and having a nice, diverse board with a varied skill sets, varied ways of thinking, multiple beliefs are going to make that board rich with those things, and so that they can do a great job of serving the organization. And so who would want to resist that, right?
Great. Yeah, that's good for the board.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to add that, if there are individuals on your team that are being resistant to diversifying your board, then you may need to question whether they are a good fit for your organization and whether you need to implement an exit strategy, because I think it's really important that the people on your team value inclusivity and are committed to diversifying your board, because that's how your team is going to be successful and to continue to thrive. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that I would be questioning if I had people who were resistant to diversifying on my team. I'd be questioning whether we need to evaluate the fit.
That's a very good point. We are just about out of time. If anybody wants to add any more on the resistance to diversifying your board. Shondalyn, if you
I'd just like to, yes, thank you. Just piggybacking off of what the other ladies have stated, I think we also have to look at, it extends beyond just us. Rare diseases most oftentimes affect a wide range of ethnicities and people. So I think we have to remind ourselves, keep that in mind, that it affects someone other than just myself or my race. So, you know, having resistance to diversification is, I mean, what's the point of resisting when it affects, or it could affect, everyone of every nationality? It's not just my race that's affected. So I think if someone is resistant to that, you know, just as Jennifer stated, you have to maybe question whether or not they're a good fit for your board. Why are they resisting? And perhaps they just need a bit of education to make sure that they understand why diversifying is so important for the both of their organization.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. This was a really fantastic webinar, and the presenters, thank you so much for being here and taking the time to present and answer all these questions. We had so many questions come in from the hundreds who registered. We're sorry if we didn't get to your question, but you can always email our team, membership@rarediseases.org. Any one of us is happy to take your questions. And if you want to connect with any of the panelists, you can also email us and we can help make that connection. So yes, thank you also, audience, for joining us. And thank you to our speakers for sharing your guidance and best practices for growing and diversifying your board of directors. We could use another hour to continue this conversation, but we're going to wrap on that. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a great rest of your afternoon.